got friends, only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been reading all the war, and I've been shutting down the stars.
And welcome to Put That Coffee Down, the freight sales show for closers, here on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and wherever you download your podcast as well. I'm your host, Kevin Hill. Have a special episode for you today. We're going to talk about research, which I love research. I love surveys. And we have a logistics buyers survey that's published every 2 years by Logistics Marketing Advisors. And we have the president and founder of that organization right here with us today, Jim Baerfeldt. But before we get to Jim in just a second, let's talk about the Freight Tech 100. It's that time of year again here at FreightWaves where we are taking nominations that open on July 5th. Nominations open. So whether it's your company or your friend's company or your vendor's company or your customer's company, does not matter. Submit those nominations at freightwaves.com. Those close on August 26th. We'll compile those. We will narrow those down to the top 100 and then send it out to our special committee of outside industry experts to vote on the top 25. We send those results to the auditing company. They count those votes. And on November 3rd, which is the third and final day of F3 here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we will announce those on stage. So a very coveted award. It's something that you can go around and brag about if you're a freight tech company. So get those nominations in. With that said, let's talk about some research and let's talk about, this is all about how to approach and how to build relationships with your target market, which are, shippers and logistics buyers, right? And we have Jim Baerfeldt here to explain it all a little bit more in depth. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good.
Good to be here.
Good. Yeah, before we kick off and talk about the survey and talk about this, you do this every 2 years. Can you explain a little bit about the survey, how it came about, and a little bit more about Logistics Marketing Advisors?
Yeah. I mean, one rap I'd give to kind of logistics marketers in general, and I'm in that group, right? Is we I don't think we spend enough time talking to the buyer. Getting the voice of the customer and integrating that into our messaging, for our logistics businesses. I spent a lot of years on the corporate side working for a third-party logistics company running their marketing. Early in 2000s, 2004, I went out on my own to start my own company, and we kind of focus exclusively on logistics. And in 2014, I had the idea to just go out to logistics buyers specifically and say, hey, you guys get pitched all the time, marketing messages, salespeople are calling you up. What's the best way to get your attention and keep your attention? What do you like about the way folks approach you? What do you hate about the way, people with a logistics product or service are approaching you? And just getting that feedback. And it's been sort of real interesting. I've been reporting on it, as you say, every couple of years since 2014, and happy to chat about what they said.
Yeah, so this sample pool is 100 logistics buyers. Can you define logistics buyers? Because we were talking before we went on air here, and I naturally assume they're moving trucks, they're moving freights, because that's my worldview.
And some of them are, some of them moving trucks, some of them are moving boats and planes globally. Some of them are, buying material handling equipment. Some of them need warehouse space. It's anybody who fits under the banner of a logistics buyer would fit the bill for this survey. We try to keep it director level and above, if we can, in terms of the 100. So yeah, a lot of them are dealing with freight, but a lot of them are Could be anything under the banner of logistics or supply chain kinds of products or services.
And I don't think it really matters too much because it's probably going to be the same approach. Whether you're a director of transportation, you're working with carriers and 3PLs or freight brokerages, or if you're material handling, warehousing, moving things by ocean and air, it's still the same universe, right? It's still the same needs, and people in logistics have the same approaches a little bit, right?
Yeah. No, I think it applies across the board. Yep.
Cool. So let's dive into the survey then. Let's throw up the first question here. And how do you prefer to be contacted by a logistics business? And, you know, let's see what kind of changes over the last 2 years, right? Because 2 years ago, was that pre-pandemic? I believe it was, or the pandemic had just
So the
began,
survey was
right?
actually, yeah, it was pre-pandemic when the actual survey was done. But
Yes.
but this particular question is been pretty consistent since the start, in the sense that email is like the number one by far. But you got to be careful with that, right? So I can tell you, Kevin, would you rather I kicked you in the shin or gave you a shot in the mouth? Which would you do? You
I
know,
know, right?
you might say, well, I'd rather you kick me in the shin, but that's not you saying inviting people to kick you in the shin. We asked the question, hey, here's a bunch of ways you can be contacted. What's the number one way? And they said email. But why did they choose email? Well, maybe it's the easiest to ignore, right? I'd rather get that than a phone
Hmm.
call. It's clear from the survey you're showing. And I sort of want to get into email a little bit more, but now that you have this,
Yeah.
sort of graphic in front of us here, number two was, I think, interesting, particularly for me. I'm sort of a content marketer, inbound marketer, so I
Hmm.
want people to reach out to me and my clients. And the number two response was useful online content. In other words, don't contact me at all.
Hmm.
Expose me to content. If I like it, I will reach out to you. So they've got their sort of antennae up, and they're blocking out a lot of emails, and they're ignoring a lot of phone calls that are coming in. But that's a little
Yeah.
story behind email. I
It's
think
and you're perfect. You're exactly right about the email too, right? Is I prefer it to be this because I can ignore it. It's not in my face. It's not really distracting me all that much, rather than constant phone calls. Now that is a distraction. That's harder to say no to. That is certainly more personable or personal. And I get this question quite often too. It's like, what's more effective, email, phone call? And my simple answer is whatever works, whatever you're better at. Some people are better at emails. If you're not crafting good emails, you're not going to get good results, right? If you're not picking up the phone and have a great message for cold calls, you're not going to have results. And
well,
it's kind of as simple as that.
yeah. I mean, you hit on it though. It's about the message. It's not so much about the
Hmm.
tactic, is what I'm hearing from the research. It's about the message.
Yep.
So let's say I call you Kevin, and I say, and I'll give you a couple of examples of what they hate and what they're open to. And the first pitch is, hey, you need reliable capacity. We have a reliable network of carriers, and our people are the best. They're on top of your shipment. They'll keep you informed every step of the way. Can we set up a call next Tuesday? All right, one approach. Generic as they come, you might not think they've gotten that phone call all month. They've gotten five of those phone calls that day. That day.
Maybe that morning, that
Contrast,
hour.
yeah, maybe. Contrast that with, hey, we've done a little research. Kevin, I know you're moving freight regularly out of your factory in Birmingham, Alabama. We happen to have a customer for whom we're shipping into Birmingham regularly. We got to get home. I see some overlap in our networks. Would love to talk about that. What do you think?
Mhm.
Think about
The,
those
the
two
second,
emails. No
oh yeah,
brainer.
the second one wins hands down every time.
Yeah, so that's why I say it's not so much the tactic, it's the
Hmm.
message. And, if there's one thing, there's a lot of stuff that came out of this research, right? But if I had to
Yeah.
put a bullseye or a circle around one, it's generic pitches. They hate them. They hate them. And, it's they feel disrespected, and it's interesting, because some of the responses I get, and listen, it's an online survey, but they'll give me some, qualitative information as well, and then I'll call like 10 of them afterwards, and speak to them, personally, and it's just interesting. They There's an emotional kind of aspect to this that is always a little surprising to me, in the sense that they feel a little disrespected. They're super, super busy, right? And here's this person who wants a bit of my time, but they didn't. Sorry about that, Kevin.
So someone's trying to get a hold of you, Jim.
Yeah, I know. I should have turned that off. But my time is valuable. Here's somebody who wants a bit of my time, but they didn't have enough respect to learn at least a little bit about my business. I mean, you got dry product vendors who've got reefer companies calling them. It's like, come on, So there's a little bit of frustration out there.
There is frustration, and it goes back to that the third on the list, right? It's useful online content. You're talking about messaging, talking about emotion too, right? And that's when you create your own content, your own useful, value generating content online, you control the message and you control the delivery of that. And you are not intruding on any of your prospects or customers' time. It is that holy grail of inbound leads, inbound interest that makes the sales process so much smoother.
It is. I mean, today, I think it's really more about, the trick is getting found. How do you get found?
Mhm.
And I kind of want to dive into this a little bit, and I'd love your take on this. But
Let's do it.
let's say there's a sales problem, right? I'm thinking the CEOs in particular, but even some chief revenue officers. I think the CEO is going to go into the chief revenue office, and he's going to say, pipeline's empty. Who are we targeting? What companies are we targeting? What industries are we targeting? As if who you're targeting had any correlation at all to who actually needs help. It's like, who's on our hit list? It's not the way stuff is bought these days. So, I think it's more about getting found. And the metaphor I use is hide and seek in reverse. So in the scenario I just described, right, the CEO thinks they're it, right? They're it, and they're out there looking for the buyers, and the buyers are hiding. We just need to find the buyers. Once we find them, we can close the sale. It ain't like that anymore. The buyers are in control. It's almost like the buyers are it, right? And they're going to stay hidden until they need a solution to a problem. Then they're going to go out and try to find one. We are actually, they're looking for us. We may not know it, but they're looking for us. So it's a game of hide and seek in reverse. The little twist on that is we want to be found, right? We want to be found. That guy says, hey, I'm moving reefer freight from Toronto area into the US all the time. I can't find capacity. I need somebody to help me with that problem. Who's out there that can solve that problem? And, that dovetails into what you were just saying, Kevin, which is, the holy grail of content, right? How do you make yourself easier to be found? Hansel and Gretel, in the forest, what did Hansel do? He laid a breadcrumb trail so he could kind of find his way out of the forest.
Yeah.
Content is our breadcrumbs. They're the way we make it easier for that prospect to say, hey, that guy, they're very involved in moving reefer freight cross-border, Canada, US. That's my problem. Maybe I need to talk to them. So,
there's two really good points to that, right? Is number one is I think the other research is out there abundantly. Doesn't matter what industry it is that especially on B2B business, the buying process starts before the buying starts, right? And that's a horrible way to put it, right? But what I'm trying to say is before they even know they have a problem, they're researching it to find out if they have a problem or not. So they are the buyers are very familiar with what their choices are and what direction they want to go before your cold call or your cold email generically throwing out something, right? So the buying process has already started and it's down the road. The second part is the breadcrumbs, right? And that's the name of the game right now, is to lay down those breadcrumbs, to be known, to have a brand before you even make your first reach out or contact, that there's some brand recognition there. Because that accelerates accelerates the sales process, and it elevates the probability that a deal will go through.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we asked the question specifically. The last time you reached out to a logistics company, why did you do it? Number one, a colleague suggested I call. Number two,
Mhm.
they have a reputation for solving the problem I was looking to solve. Okay, two really, really important things.
And I think
You
that's
know,
the second chart. So if we can throw that up here, Tanner, uh, we can talk to that. Oh, nope. The right there. That's it. Right. This is
yeah,
one
the
we're
other one.
referencing. Oh, the other
Yeah,
one.
no, no,
Okay.
I think it's the
Sorry.
other one. Yeah, so I left that salesperson there. So yeah, I mean, to me, if you've got a relationship, with a salesperson, you kind of know the company already. As a marketer,
Yeah.
I'm interested in getting those new people. So this is okay. All right. So internet search result. Yeah, this is yeah, okay. Recommendation from colleague.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you see it there. I don't know why I don't have those things in order, but 23%
That's
recommendation
fine.
from a colleague, 21% strong reputation for the service and product I needed. Where does that reputation come from? People just don't intuitively
Exactly.
know it. They read stuff. They see you.
Hmm.
They see you on a podcast talking about your solution. They read a PR article where you're talking about a case study for another company you solved. So yeah, it's all about the breadcrumb trail. It's all about making
And
yourself
the bread
easier to found.
and to define, and if you take the strong reputation for services, right, and you take the four above it, those are your breadcrumbs, right? You want to be at trade
Yeah,
shows, conferences, meeting people. You want to be found on the internet. You want to have a relationship with that buyer, and you want to give a service or product that's so great that you generate word of mouth. And all of those
yeah, yeah,
combined gets you into a strong reputation.
yeah. Word of mouth is your best friend. Referral leads close 3 to 4 times
Hmm.
the rate of other leads. So leveraging that word of mouth is really, really important.
Now, here's a
I
question
just
for you, Jim.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, here's a question for you on referral. We know referral is certainly the strongest marketing. Word of mouth is great. Now, can you kind of build, like a synthetic referral based on your content online, right? So it generates the buzz itself. So maybe it's not the referral of someone specifically, but it's a referral from the value you generate in your content. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I did follow that.
So
I mean,
instead of
you're
having someone, a colleague, say, "Hey, this is a great company," is to find such great quality and content in your online, your content marketing, that is almost like a referral,
it's
because
almost
that
like a
information
referral.
is so golden, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you know what? And I started to tell a story there. If you indulge me, we got a little
Hmm.
time, don't
Sorry.
we? Okay. So
Oh yeah,
here's
we've got plenty of time.
I just had some surgery, right? So I've said for a long time, choosing a logistics provider is like choosing a plumber, or choosing, in my case, a medical professional to help me deal with my arm problem. I think there's three questions you ask: Who do we know? Who do you know? And who's out there who knows? So let me explain those. So who do we know? We've already got a relationship with somebody. If I've got a doctor I trust, I don't have to go looking for a doctor to solve my problem. I've got one. But if I don't, as in the case with this, wrist surgery I had, which is a little specialized,
Yeah.
I went out and said, well, who do you know? Well, I went to my, GP. I went to my wife's a nurse, so we know a lot of medical people in my community. I said, I'm having this particular type of surgery. Do you know any sort of hand specialists that, you would recommend? So if somebody that I knew said, you know what, Dr. Jones is phenomenal. I know 3 people who've gone to him and he did a great job. That's the second thing. So that gets into the referrals, right? Somebody I trust told me to call Dr. Jones or Acme Logistics, as it were, right? If you go through those 2 questions, Kevin, and you don't come up with your answer, the third one is who's out there who knows? And this was interesting. When I went out and looked for hand specialists, there's plenty out there, right? But I found a guy, many people, but this one particular guy who'd written a couple of articles about the exact surgery I had. Not only that, YouTube's crazy. There was an actual YouTube video of the operation that I needed to have done by this doctor, where you actually see the operation being performed, like inside the arm, and he's narrating it as he does the work. So guess who did my surgery?
He did.
He did the surgery. And, how do we apply that to logistics? What is the evidence you can put out there, that's, along those same lines, you have this problem. Here are the ways that we solve this problem that you can leverage.
As you're exactly right. And I did an episode with our senior research analyst here for it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. You can find it on podcasts or on YouTube, right? I have YouTube videos. But it's all about using research, because you have the data, you have the material. It's just getting focused enough to really provide that research, content marketing, however you want to frame it, but adding value and education to the market, because that is the buying decision, the step ladder that you did, 1, 2, 3, is what's happening. If you don't have a pigeonhole on some kind of online content, some value driven that's just out there for free, you are behind your competitors right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. A client of mine is very focused on global freight, particularly in the Asia Pac region, right? So, they were generating an internal report on kind of, what's going on in this particular quarter. So they began making that available, and it sounded like, I don't know, does anybody really want or interested in this? But we think about people in the United States, right, who are reliant on a supply chain where a lot of stuff is done in Asia Pac, and obviously there's been a ton of issues, the last couple of years about moving freight from Asia to the U.S. and et cetera. But it's very, very valuable for them to get this quarterly freight report, or they actually do it monthly now, on what is actually happening on the ground in, let's say, mainland China, Singapore, Taiwan, etc. But, we hear stories about, Shanghai and the ports closed down. What's actually going on? We've got feet on the ground there. We've got 200 people, in that market who really know what's going on. Let us give you the update. People want that. That's just an example, but that's great content. And what it says to people is, not only does it maybe help me do my job and make some decisions about moving freight in the near term, but it puts that seed in my head. These guys know Asia Pac. They know that lane really well. Maybe next time I need something, I'm going to talk to them.
And just like in business, you don't have to be good at everything. So same thing with your content marketing or the resources you push out. You don't have to explain everything that's going on. find what you know that nobody else knows or nobody else is certainly out there publishing, and publish that. And it's that simple. Jim, we're running out of time here. Thanks so much for joining us today. What's your website where people can go out and download this report?
Well, the website is logisticsmarketing.com, pretty simple, and the survey is almost as simple. Logisticsmarketing.com/survey. You won't go to a form; you'll go right to the PDF and read away. And good stuff. Voice of the customer.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim. Great content as always. Come back again anytime, and join us next week for Put That Coffee Down, the freight sales show for closers, 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
I got friends only wanna talk business. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I got expensive, cause winning's expensive. I've been winning all the war. And I've been shutting down the stars.